Hey guys, Chris Ackland here from Iron Tribe Weightlifting. So today's Q&A, we have 5 questions. How do I help my recovery? Training around niggles and injuries. 3, when to push, when to back off. 4, accessories on off days. And number 5, last one is tips for shift workers. So we are in lockdown. Our lockdown has just been extended. So a bunch of these questions are going to be super important and probably questions you're going to be asking yourself. So the first one is, how do I help with my recovery? Now, if we look at recovery as a pyramid, and then the base obviously being the most important to the top being the least important, this is taken from Dr. James Hoffman, who wrote the book on recovery. Now, the number one most important thing for recovering from training is, are you doing too much volume? So, do you have enough work that you can actually recover from? Because if you're doing far too much, or your intensities are too high, or you're pushing too hard too often, it doesn't matter what the rest of the recovery modalities are. You're not going to get any better. So that is number one. So that is something. So our big tip for, are you training too much? Are your intensities too high? Is chatting to your coach. If you're on one of our club programs, so you're using a program that you might have, say, like anywhere from 15 to 20 people on the same program, especially if you're a master, this could be chatting to your coach and then asking them, do you think I'm doing too much? And then you can have a really good conversation around it. And it might be something as simple as either A, dropping the intensities a little bit, B, dropping the volume a little bit, or C, doing a little bit of both. So if you think you're in that category, our suggestion is to reach out to your coach and then chat to them about potentially modifying the program a little bit. Or do they actually think that there's other areas that you can improve on to help with your training? The next section up within our recovery pyramid, this magical pyramid, is passive recovery. So this is things like sleep, your relaxation periods, and then stress management. Now, when we look at sleep, there's a bunch of studies out there that show the difference between, say, 8 and 6 hours, and that if someone is getting on average 6 hours a night, their chances for injury go up through the roof dramatically. So for some people, this is not an option, but this is just something to be aware of. So that potentially means that intensity needs to come down in your training during periods where sleep, you just can't happen. For me, I've got a baby at the moment. Intensities are tough to come by. Number 2 in this same section is relaxation. So do you have something in your life that is, the yin to your yang? Training is high stress, is there to break down the body, be catabolic, and then the recovery side of things is there to kind of help us recover. It's there to be anabolic. So do you have something in your life that is relaxing? Is that point where you can just take a deep breath out and you can actually relax for a little bit? From my suggestion, preferably something away from a screen, being out in the outdoors. This could be, for some people it's going to be yoga, going for a walk with your partner, taking the pets for a walk, dog, cat, whatever it is you like to go for a walk with. And then number 3, stress management. So this is something about outside of my realm, but this could be, if there are certain things going on in your life, chatting to somebody, a professional, to help deal with those. This could be psychological, this could be whatever it is. So they're the 3 areas for our passive. Above that, we have our active recovery, things like nutrition, things like light movement, breath work, stretching. I've written obligation, and what I mean by obligation is this is where you could put in extra work that is there to kind of help bring up any deficiencies. But my little caveat with that is I don't want it to be stressful. I want it to be something that is getting your steps up, getting just something that that you perceive to be. I don't really necessarily use a lot of them, but for some people it's going to be foam rollers. It could be massage, things like that. Above that, which we're not going to go into, is supplements and therapeutic stuff. So those are the main sections for our recovery pyramid, guys. Everyone is going to need to go to a different area depending on where they are and depending on where they're lacking. You always start down the bottom and then have a look at those, ask those questions, and then work your way out. Question number 2, training around injuries and niggles. Number 1, let your coach know that it's actually there. Isabel, who asked this question, she said that she's had knee pain for quite some time now. I only heard about it for the first time, I think it was the Thursday before we locked down. We tried some modalities that really helped then and there, but this is something that if you have niggles, my preference is to not train through them, it is to train around them. So trying to figure out ways that you can still continue to improve in areas that need improving, because there are sometimes you can just back off areas. Like the woman in question, Isabel, has a tremendous amount of strength, and if we were to do box squats for a little while, to focus on some posterior chain stuff, and then do some, whatever the work is that we decide that is best, that's not really, everyone sees that as this big issue. It's not. Sometimes these little niggles are blessings in disguise. They only help us. They're only, good lessons. Now, the other caveat to this around pushing through niggles and injuries is like this idea of pushing through pain. And like as weightlifters, we like to, wear a badge of honor, like everything's sore, but I still train. Yes, there are going to be some periods where things are going to hurt. This is going to be person dependent and goal dependent. So what I mean by person dependent is like, are you playing the sport of weightlifting for fun and chasing specific goals, and your plan is to be doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, then pushing through pain is a very different image to somebody who is, my goal is to be the best weightlifter I can be in the next 10 years, and I will sacrifice my body to do that. Just like what you see with some of the AFL footballers who, are a picture of health through their football career, and 15 years after, can't bend down to pick up kids and stuff like that. So I know what I'm doing it for. I know what my personal thing is. Yes, I've got some higher-ish goals, but I wouldn't sacrifice my body to hit those goals, which is why my progress is generally relatively slow. But I enjoy my training. I have fun with my training. I see enough success to continue to put effort in. My coach might necessarily agree with me, but that's where it's goal dependent. Cool. Question number 3. When to push, when to back off. And this is a really good question for those who are in lockdown right now. When to push, all of the time, always. No, I'm just joking. Really quickly, with this when to push, when to back off, the percentages are a guideline. Plus or minus 5%, it's perfectly fine. If you're having a day where you just cannot manage 85%, doing 80% with quality form versus 85% with form that you would be embarrassed to send a video to me or to your coaches of, the answer is really easy. Your body has no idea what weight is in the bar. It just knows how stressful and how tough the session is. So if that's the case, when you're looking to ask the question to back off, is this a video that you would be happy to send to your coach, or would you delete this video really quickly and send him one of the other ones? Or send them one of the other ones. If that is the case, the answer is easy. Time to take some percentages off, leave the ego at the door, and go from there. Now, when to push, look, there's a few people at the moment who are kind of at the pointy end. For now, it all comes down to quality. If you're in that 85-90% range and we're practicing singles or we're practicing doubles, we don't want to touch maximum weights. We don't want to be getting nervous, sweaty palm feeling when we're about to pick the barbell up if we're still 4, 5, 6 weeks away from a PB or from a competition. If you're going to pick a PB up and you are not nervous at all, you are super confident about it, that's a good time to push. But my general rule of thumb is in training is try to leave some of that nervous energy as late as possible, because it is super, super beneficial when we're starting to prepare for competitions. We're trying to take a little bit of the excitability out of it, if that makes any sense. So I hope that helps for the when to push, when to back off. Accessories on off days. So question number 4. So just a couple of tips is one, if you're asking this question, the number one thing you have to ask yourself is, will this take away from the training that you are doing, or from personal life stress management, things like that? If it is, it might not be worth doing. And if it is something that you think this could be like weakness work, maybe chat to your coach about potentially swapping something out that is in your program. Now, with that being said, be very careful. What I typically see is someone will be doing 4 days, crushing it. Everything's going well. PBs are coming relatively at good paces over time. They add a 5th day and they just can't quite get to it. And then it starts to drive them a little bit nuts. So then that starts to take away from one of their other sessions. And then it just, they start to beat themselves up because they can't train, so to speak. If that's the case, sometimes it's beneficial, less is more. Majority of us here are doing this for a bit of fun. trying to find that right balance. I mean, we have examples of lifters here who train 3 days, who some people would love the results that they've got right now. So they've found the right balance for them. And look, that balance might go up and down depending on goals and depending on where they're at in their training. But just keep that in mind as to like, do I really need this? And is this going to take away from other parts of my life? Cool. So some suggestions, right? Is two things. Is one, choose something that is a weakness, and two, make it kind of fun. So it could be CrossFit related, like what I've been trying to do with some of my accessories recently, which will possibly start coming into the groups, is like picking, like I know I want to roughly do 40 squats, or 40, handstand push-ups, presses, whatever it is. And if I do 4x10, boring, snooze fest. I don't want to do 4x10. But if I was to do, say, 12, 10, 8, 6, or if I was to do a ladder of 10 to 1 or whatever it is, there's some suggestions that we can do to kind of make them a little bit more fun. But from the weakness work side of things is like, if your goal is like Ryan who asked this question, and Liz asked a pretty similar question as well, but if your goal is like Ryan's, he can snatch 110 kilos, he can clean and jerk 130, we're pretty close to getting to that 115, 140 mark, and he wants to be able to do his first pull-up. That's great. Chuck in some more upper body pulling exercises, talk to your coach, talk to me about some suggestions, and I can give you some more specific ones. From Liz's side of things, Liz's question, this goes back to the pyramid that we saw earlier in terms of active recovery. I think the number one thing for Liz for your active recovery is when you are out with your kids, being as active as possible. I don't know what you do, and I would assume that you already are pretty damn active, but running after your kids, chasing after your kids could be huge. There's extra steps. It's fun. So that would be one. In terms of if you're looking for something specific, regimented, walks, bike rides, stretching, potentially yoga. That's something that we can have a chat about in private as well. But active recovery, as we kind of mentioned earlier, is going to be different from person to person. Cool. So that's our accessories on off days. Before actually I move on from accessories on off days, there's a good podcast on Seeker Strength with a Latvian lifter, Suarez. I can't pronounce his name. He trains 4 times a day. They're not all weightlifting sessions. He has like his aerobic sessions, bodybuilding sessions, calisthenics, and weightlifting, all that type of stuff. He looks at some of his accessories as obligations. So what are the things that he needs to do that aren't necessarily weightlifting that will help his weightlifting? And this could be overhead carries, this could be pull-ups, this could be gymnastics movements, this could be core movements, bent agate, things like that. So that would be my suggestion, is like write down 2 or 3 obligations. For me, it would be overhead work that is incorporated into your program if you really actually need the accessories at all. All right. Tip number 5, let's see if I can get this done in under 16 minutes, is tips for shift workers. The biggest tip I can give you is, number 1, change your damn job. I am just joking. It's difficult, right? It's difficult to manage it. So a couple of tips that we can do with this is recovery is key. So looking back at the things we said earlier, what are the areas that we can improve on there? Number 2 is listening to your body. We also mentioned earlier about percentages, when to push, when to back off. Think plus or minus that 5% range. Number 3, chatting to your coach. What's my heavy day this week? Can I move that because I'm coming off a 12-hour night shift that night? 100% we can move it. We can always play with things. And then the last tip that I can give you is, if you've got a string of nights, if you've got a whole week of them and you know they're coming up, chat to your coach, because potentially you could move a week forward or a week backwards. Sometimes you can't because there's a competition coming up, but sometimes you can, and you could have a light week. You bring the deload forward 1 week and then push the week after. There are definitely strategies that you can do, but the number one thing is listening to your body, because the downside, as we mentioned earlier with less sleep, is recovery will be your biggest battle. I killed it, guys. That is it. I got it underneath 15 minutes, and everyone who knows me knows that I could talk forever underneath water. So thank you so much for listening, guys. Let's get this blurriness back. Perfect time to finish it on. So thank you very much, guys. I will hopefully see you all soon. I'll have some notes coming up around... there we go, we're back. Bloody GH vibes. About what our plan is for the next week with lockdown. We'll have some Zoom classes. Laura reached out to see if she could run an online Pilates class. we've got tons of options coming, guys. We might even have beer lardies on a Friday night or something like that. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your message of support. Thank you for all your help, and I will catch you all soon. Cheers.